Hi everyone, Sandy Trefker. I'm here again with a tutorial project for Country Craft Creations. First, I'm going to show you the products that I use that you can order from their store at countrycraftcreations.com. First, the Graphic 45 Roses Rose Bouquet Collection, and then the Graphic 45 12x12 Floral Shoppe paper collection. I use a few sheets from the full collection. I also use the Country Craft Creations Artisan cardstock in the navy blue color. And I will be using the Art Glitter Designer glue that you can also order from their store. I did make my round hat box from scratch, and I'm going to share with you the basic instructions on how to make a round box with a lid. But if you have one already on hand from some other project, or perhaps something that you bought that is a round box with a lid, then you can alter that and skip the step of actually making one. Mine will be a 6-inch size round box when finished, and I will say that I wrote down the measurements that I used here that you see on the screen, but I would suggest that you make the larger circle just a little bit bigger, like perhaps 6 1/4 inches instead of the 6 1/8 that I use. The number in parentheses is the setting that I used on my brother's Scan and Cut, because I did my circles with that. You can use the circles shapes that are already on your machine if you have one, but you just need to adjust the size to fit. So let's get started. These are the measurements of what you will need to cut out of the navy blue cardstock, or whatever color cardstock you choose to use. You need one circle that's 6 inches, one circle for the lid that is 6 1/4 inch. Make it a little bit bigger than what I'm showing so that it will easily go on and off over the added pattern papers. You need strips that are, you need one that's 3 inches by 12 inches, one 3 inch by 7 1/4 inch, one 2 inch by 12 inch, and one 2 inch by 7 1/2 inch. I've already pre-cut my cardstock out of the navy blue artisan cardstock from Country Craft Creations. I have the 2 circles, the one a little bit larger for the lid, and I have my 4 strips. I have 2 2-inch wide strips and 2 3-inch wide strips. And you're going to need to seam these together. So I'm going to take the 2-inch ones first, and I do not want to overlap these because this will make it thicker. You want it as flat as possible. So I'm going to butt these 2 pieces up together, match them up, and then I'm taking score tape, a 1/4 inch score tape, and I'm seaming these together on both sides. This will hold it together so we can construct the actual box base and the lid. The 2-inch is for the lid and the 3 inches for the base. I'm going to grab my 3-inch and go ahead and seam them together right quick, and then I will add the score tape, I think, to the back side to give it extra strength. So I'm just going to lay this on there, make sure they stay stuck together really tight, because we do need this longer continuous piece to construct this box. Okay, so yes, I think I'll go ahead and put another piece of score tape on the back side as well. And this will just add in as some of your adhesive later on when you're patterning the sides with your decorative paper. So I'm going to add a piece to the 2-inch piece as well. So now we have 2 long strips, one for the lid and one for the base. So let's get the scoreboard, and we want a 1/2 inch score line along the long side of each piece, just one. So you start at the top, and of course your scoreboard is only 12 inches, so it's not long enough. You're just going to pick it up and slide and go ahead and score through that score tape. And I didn't mention that you can order score tape from countrycraftcreations.com if you don't have any in your supplies. So do this to each one. You only want one score line on each strip. I need to trim a little bit of the score tape backing on one edge to make sure it's even. So now I'm going to score this 1/2 inch all the way down, then slide it up and score the rest of it right over that score tape as well. Okay, so that's all the scoring that you need to do for this project. So I'm going to grab my mat and put that back on there. And next you're going to get your scissors. If you've ever sewn and you know what notches are, I can't remember the exact words for it. I've sewn for years, but I just know what they are. But we're going to cut V's in this paper up to the score line, all the way down the length of both pieces. So you will do this to the entire piece, the whole length of this piece and the other strip as well. And I'm going to go ahead and do both of these off camera. Okay, I have all the notches cut, so now I'm just going along with my fingers and folding each one all in the same direction along the score line. And you will do this to both strips. Now you're ready to start assembling your box. So we're going to work on the base first, which is the 3-inch wide strip, and you want your smallest, the 6-inch circle, you want that one first. And the way you put this together is you're going to glue these notches. You're going to curve this strip around the circle, gluing each notch to the bottom side. So I do a few at a time, like maybe 3 or 4. Make sure your fold lines are folded up good. Get your art glitter glue, and starting on one end, I'm going to apply glue to each notch. This takes a lot of patience, but it is easy once you've done it a couple of times. So make sure the cut edge of the circle goes right up against the fold line of your strip. Hold it for a few minutes if you need to. Burnish with your fingers. Like I said, this is a little tricky at first. You just have to work with it to get it started. But you do want to make sure that it is all the way in, flush to the cut line of the circle. So you don't want a crooked box. You want it as straight as possible. But do keep in mind this is a handmade box, so it's not going to be totally perfect. So once that is stuck down, then you're going to lift up and glue the one that hasn't been glued yet, and add some more glue to a few more of the notches. And then just roll and burnish those notches that have the glue. Burnish them to the bottom of that circle. The lid is made the exact same way, and if you cut out the longer, add on a little bit longer piece of strip to that, it will work. Mine was a little bit short, so I want to make sure that you have added extra onto yours. I put a correction note at the first when I was given the measurements that should work well with the lid. So here we are adding some more glue, and you're just going to keep rolling this around and attaching those to the base, the bottom of that circle piece. Okay, once you have the sides attached, you're ready to join it where they meet from the starting point and the ending point. So I'm just adding a line of glue, and this does have to overlap just a little bit. You don't want a real thick overlapping, but it does have to overlap a little bit unless you matched it up perfectly, and then you could seam it with score tape. So I'm using just a little bit of glue. It's probably like maybe a 1/16 of an inch of glue, and really rubbing that in and burnishing it and making sure that it sticks down. So next I'm going to turn it over and check, and there will be a few of your notches, tabs, that need some more glue. That just happens. They didn't get burnished well. So from the bottom side, go back over and apply more glue to the ones that are not quite attached down as securely as they need to be. So that's what I'm going to be doing here, and then I kind of burnish it on the inside, pressing down and making sure that everything gets attached good. And so after this is done, the base is ready. I'm trimming here a little place where I noticed that it kind of was a little off, just a tiny smidge. So I've got that trimmed off, and I'm just going to double check it again, and I like how it looks. So we're going to set that aside and work on the lid. To save some time, I went ahead and attached the sides to the lid off camera, and I did seam the lid because it was kind of short on mine. So if you have that problem, you didn't have enough length of side for the circle size that you have, then go ahead and seam that. As you can see, mine is a really tight fit. Once I work with it, it does work better, so I'm not going to change it, but this is why I added the extra measurement at the front for your lid, so that it will go on and off easier. Now we're ready to add our pretty papers. So you're going to cut out 4 more circles out of your pattern paper. I'm using the honeycomb yellow from Authentique as part of mine because it's a neutral pattern that I wanted. And then I'm also using the Floral Shoppe from Graphic 45. I cut all of mine 6 inches because I wanted some of the navy cardstock to show around my lid. So what I've done here, I've just applied glue, and on the inside you need to make sure that it fits. I didn't pay attention, so I'm lifting mine up real quick before it really sets so that I can center it and make sure that it's where it needs to be. So I'll may have to add some more glue. Let me see if I've got enough still. So yeah, just make sure that you're centered it in the center even along all the edges, and then burnish that down. Now what this does is we're going to be adding pattern paper to the inside and the outside of the circles, so this gives you 3 thicknesses of paper to make your box a little stronger. I'm going to put this honeycomb yellow color in the lid as well. Like I said, I wanted a little bit of pattern, but mostly neutral, because the floral collection with Graphic 45 is a lot of flowers, so a lot of different flower patterns, and I didn't want it too busy, so I wanted the inside to have more of a neutral look to it. So I'm adding these to the inside of the lid and the inside of the box base. So burnish those in, and these are exactly cut to fit, so you're not going to have much border or no room for moving around there. So now I'm turning it over, and as you see, by cutting these 6 inches, I'm going to have a border. Now before I glue the top piece down, and also the one on the bottom, I'm going to ink the edges. So I decided to use Prima's linen ink that you can also order. At least that's where I ordered mine, from countrycraftcreations.com. You could check their website to see if they still have these available. So I'm inking with this Prima linen color. It's kind of a green looking color, but it works well with these floral colors that are on this paper. So I wanted to ink the edges of these circles that actually are going to show more. And you can also ink after you have put them down on the box to give it the inking look that you want. Some people want more ink and some people want less. I tend to be a lighter handed inking person versus a heavier ink, and sometimes on some projects I do not ink at all. So just go ahead and ink those and get them ready to glue down. Now because my lid was cut the original size and not cut a little bit bigger, I am going to have less of the navy cardstock showing. You will probably have more. That's okay. I have just a little bit. You don't want a whole lot showing because of the notches, but adjusting your size, so you may want to cut these circles for the lids just a little bit bigger. I'll go ahead and put a correction thing on the video so that you will make a note of that. Also, if you have any score tape back and showing on the top side of your lid or box base, go ahead and remove the tape backing for that off now so that it's not showing on the edges. To pattern the inside of your box in the lid and inside the base, and also on the outside and the inside, you need to cut strips of paper. So I've selected these pink stripe from the Floral Shoppe collection. You're going to want 4 each of the cut 2 7/16 of an inch tall by 12 inches long, and then you're going to need 4 each that are 1 17/16 of an inch tall by 12 inches for the lid. Now you have 4 pieces of these because we're going to cut these to fit, because you're going to need a little bit longer length for in the lid and around the perimeter of the lid than you do for the base. But to make sure that we have plenty cut, we're going to go ahead and cut 4 full 12-inch long strips, and then go ahead and ink the edges of your strips before we get ready to put these together. Okay, now we're ready to put our pattern paper inside the box. I'm working with the lid first, and I'm going to peel off any score tape backing that's on the inside. So get those out of the way. And I am not going to join these strips together because it gets a little tricky making sure everything lays down flat. So you want to work on smaller sections at a time. I'm going to put glue on the floor piece here, so I'm just starting with the end and a couple of inches down. If you put glue, it will dry too fast. If you put it too far out, also it gets really hard to make this lay down flat in this bent circle shape. So you want to line it up top to bottom, get it on as straight as possible, and then let that part dry a little bit for a few seconds. And I'm just bending this to see how far it goes around, and I'm going to add some more glue now. And I certainly don't expect that I need to use 2 full strips, 12-inch strips on the inside of this, but you may have to piece some together to get the length you want. So the lid's a little bit bigger, so like I said, you want to burnish really, really well to make sure it lays down flat, and you want to get it as straight as possible. And here on the inside, rather than overlapping, I'm trying to make sure that I attach it so that it's butted up real close to the last end that I put in. So I'm just measuring, putting it in, dry fitting it in to see where I probably need to cut to make this match up on the inside. I kind of eyeballed mine. I would suggest probably marking it with a pencil and then cutting, but because I had the stripes here, I thought that I could go ahead and get it pretty close. So cut that off. So now I'm ready to add the glue to this piece. This is a shorter piece. So I'm going to go ahead and try to just glue it all in at once. So this is how you add pattern paper to the inside of your lid, and also you will do the same to the inside of your base. And then once the insides are done, then you're going to pattern the outside the same way. And again, make sure you burnish it real well and get it down as flat as possible so that you don't have any gaps in your paper up against the box sections. or up against the box walls, I should say. Now go ahead and peel the tape backing off the outside of the lid. When you're gluing on and adding your paper on your lid and the box base on the outside, pay careful attention that it's going on real even and flat. You want to make sure that it doesn't extend at the top. If it extends a little bit at the bottom, that's going to be more okay than at the top where it's sticking up over the edge. So just work at it and get it as straight as possible. The lid is patterned on the inside and the outside, and now we're ready to do the base. For the sides of my base, I decided to go with a navy blue pattern from the Floral Shoppe collection, and I'm just going to ink up the edges real quick, and I'm going to be gluing these on in the same manner that I did the lid. I'll do the inside first and then the outside. Okay, the hat box is all patterned on the inside and the outside, and you open it up and it's finished. As you can see, I won't be doing any decorating on the inside, but I will add decorating to the lid of my hat box. So let's get started on that. As you can see, the roses on the paper have a yellow with a slight pink tint to them. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick out several of the white Graphic 45 roses. They only come in white, and I'm going to ink these. I'm using a Distress Oxide ink to ink each petal. And then to make it more closely match the roses in the papers, I'm taking a little bit of the pink Distress Oxide ink and adding that to the center and on some of the edges of some of the petals. So I'm going to do this to each one that I will be using in the design on the lid of the box, but I also will probably make one or two just solid pink just to bring in some of that pink color. To help with some of the blending, I've laid my rose out on a dry baby wipe, and I'm taking a little spray bottle of water and I'm just lightly spritzing it so that the oxide ink spreads some, and then also blotting it to take away some of the dark or the brighter color. And do this until it looks the way that you want it to look. So I'm just adding a little more pink and then blotting it where it's damp to get that blended look that I want. I've laid the rose that I just finished coloring on the lid of my box, and as you can see, it closely matches the rose that's on the paper of the box. So I'm going to keep doing this to a few more of these, and I'm going to do these off camera, and then I'll come back and we'll finish decorating. I have all my roses colored, and now I'm getting ready to add some lace to the lid of my box. So I've selected this lace here that's in my stash, but I think that I did order it originally from Country Craft Creations. So you can check, she does have different laces and ribbons from time to time, so check the store and see what's available or look in your stash. So I like the way that looks up against the rim of the lid. So that's where I'm going to put the lace. I'm going to use 1/8 inch score tape that I have, and I'm just going to stick this down all along the very top edge of the lid of my box. So I'm going to put this on in one continuous piece. And you could use glue if you wanted to. I just like sometimes to use the simplicity of using the score tape, and it holds really well. Do use sometimes a little bit of glue on the ends just to secure it some. So go ahead and get that down. I can never tear score tape straight, so I just snip it off with my scissors. So I'm just checking it and burnishing it with my fingers, and then I'm going to pull the tape backing off. Go ahead and pull that off all the way around. And then take your lace or ribbon or whatever you're putting on as a trim and add it to the edge. So I'm doing it upside down. I think for me it's a little bit easier, and I'm starting it where there's a seam. And just make sure you get it on as straight as you can, and just follow that along, all along the edge onto the score tape. And as I said earlier, I'm just taking some of the art glitter glue, and I'm going to secure the ends where the lace comes together with a bit of glue, and put some on the cut edge of the lace so that it doesn't unravel. And now I'm just taking some of the paper and fussy cutting out some flowers. I like to use small scissors, and I turn the paper as I'm cutting the petals out. Remember, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. You want to cut out any of the dark color that you don't want to show, but just cut around it real quick. It doesn't have to be stressful. It's kind of fun to cut out, fussy cut some of the elements. So I'm going to cut out a few different flowers that I think I might want to add in. And you will see laying there on the lid, off camera, I took the Graphic 45 clock die and punched me out a frame. And I'm going to glue that down underneath where I'm going to arrange my flowers. So you see that lacy part there on the lid. And also I'm going to, I think, utilize the circle that also was punched out. And I did select one chipboard piece from the chipboard set of the Floral Shoppe to also use on my lid. Now I'm ready to put it all together. I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to take this lacy piece that I cut out with a graphic 45 clock die. Excuse me. And I'm just going to add some glue to that. So that was the die. So I'm going to put some glue on the back side. I want the yellow side to be what's on top of the lid with the floral pattern in the background. So you don't have to cover it solid, just the inner edge, a good line of glue, and then a little bit here and there, because it's okay if it's not completely attached down, because I'm going to be adding a lot of elements on top of it and it'll eventually get glued down. I did have a lady one time ask me why I covered up so much of the pretty pattern paper underneath. Well, things underneath is what makes it all come together. You're not going to see everything 100%. And when you're doing layering like this, you just want what little bit you see to make it look like it all goes together. So now I'm putting this circle back in the center because I think the lighter color will help make some of the flowers pop. I had a key in my stash, just a large metal key. I can't remember where it came from or what brand it is. It could be Graphic 45. I'm not sure. So I have wrapped some of the vines that come in the Graphic 45 rose bouquet package. I guess you would call those tendrils of the vines. So I've wrapped those around, and one of the rose buds that I did leave white, but I may add just a touch of pink to it later. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. And now this will take some time for this to dry, and I think I may need to add a little bit of lift, a little foam tape. So I'm going to grab some of that, and I'm just trying to decide if I do need to do that, and I think that it probably will help. So I've grabbed some foam tape, cut it in small squares that I can tuck it and hide it behind portions of the key. So this is going to help give it some lift where it needs to be lifted up. So sometimes you have to make these sort of adjustments when you're arranging and decorating, and don't worry about it. The glue hadn't dried yet, so it's perfectly fine. I could wipe it off if I didn't want it. Things are going to get hidden, so everything's going to work out great with this. So I'm going to let that dry just for a little bit. Put a little extra glue down underneath, and I think I need a little bit of foam underneath the bottom part of that key. So I'm just cutting a little bit off camera vision, and I'm just going to tuck that in. And again, it's okay if you have to lift it some and get everything in position the way you want it. So I'm putting the key here on the edge with some of the vine tendrils wrapped around it and one rosebud. And in the end, you probably won't see much of this key, but that's okay. It is there. You will see it hidden, tucked away in there. I'm wiping off excess glue. Okay. So now I'm just looking at my different embellishments that I have and deciding where I want to put different things. So I'm going to add some more flowers in on this key. So I have a rosebud that I colored a light pink. And I do use the art glitter glue for attaching my embellishments, even my flowers. It gives me time to move things around, and because it dries clear, I can wipe off any excess if I need to. I can add more glue, and once it's dried, it sticks really, really well. I have tried other glues. I get frustrated because they won't come out once they've dried in the bottle, or hot glue gun, I don't like the strings, and it's just, this has worked really well for me. You just have to try different glues and different adhesive to see what works for you. So I'm adding a larger yellow rose here on the side. And you have to just keep moving things, pushing it back in place as you're arranging. This is my chipboard piece. I tied some natural button twine string on it. And I'm going to put some foam tape on the back of this as well. So what I'm doing a little bit out of the camera view is cutting up a little piece of the foam tape, and I'm going to probably double layer it to make it thicker. And I'm just going to stick that down here on the right side of that lacy piece. And I'm ready to start adding in some flowers. So I have the larger rose that has 3 leaves on it, and I'm putting a good amount of the art glitter glue on the back of that rose. I'm just going to kind of glue that down on the top over that button string, wiping off some glue that dripped off. I did put a lot on it. Okay, so clean that up, and here's a pink smaller rose. I just clipped that wire off of it with my Tim Holtz scissors, and then I'm just going to glue that in. And you'll notice that rather than putting them flat side by side, I kind of push them in together to kind of make them look like they're in a bouquet or naturally growing that way. I'm going to put another one here at the bottom. Kind of squish them in together. Don't be afraid to squish them to make them look, put them in the place that you want them to be. And this is one of the fussy cut flowers from the paper collection, so I'm going to glue that to the center here. Now I did lay this all out beforehand off camera where I thought that I might want everything to go, and I did take a picture of it with my phone for reference, so that's off to the side, and that's how I know where I want to put most of my elements as I'm gluing everything down. So this fussy cut flower is going to go down here at the bottom. By layering these fussy cut flowers in with the silk flowers, you're just adding more dimension to the paper. It's just a layering effect, and you will cover up some of your things that are underneath, but there'll still be glimpses of it for you to see. So this one rose that I cut out, I'm going to stick that to the left of the key, and I think I'm going to use foam tape for it. Just one layer. And sometimes instead of foam tape, I actually use pieces of chipboard that I can layer up. I have been known to layer up 6 or 7 pieces of chipboard to get the lift that I want for something that I am layering and creating and adding as embellishments. So that it's a great tip that you can use, is save your scraps of chipboard and cut it into layering pieces that you can use for lift on the back of your embellishments. Now this one is a cluster of the small pink flowers, and I am going to glue that to the top of the key. So I'm just checking my positioning, and I'm going to just kind of curl it just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and glue some of that. I'm going to put the glue actually on the key over those wires, and I'm just going to lay this down right on top of it. Okay, I'm liking how that's coming along. And here I made a bow on my fingers, a multi-loop bow out of the button, the natural button twine, and I've folded it up, and at the base of it I'm adding quite a bit of glue, and I'm going to tuck that in at the top of this tag and underneath the rose. I always add my ribbons and bows after other things have been arranged, so that I can tuck it in rather than gluing the bow down and then having to position everything around it. I want the bow to be added on secondary to the other elements. So I bend this up some. I think I'm going to need to add one more of these tendrils at the top. I don't like just 2. I think it's going to need to have 3 at least. I like to do things in 3s if I can. So like I have 3 of the big roses by the tag, and I have 3 the big rose and 2 buds on the left on the key. So I like to do things in 3s or possibly in 5s of the same elements like that. That helps with your focal point. And now I'm going to add, and these came with the roses. I cut them apart, and I'm just going to glue a few leaves in here and there. So I dry fit them, I lay them around and see where I think I might want them, and then sometimes it doesn't even end up being in the same place. But you just want to tuck them in. You don't want them taking away from all your other decorating elements, but you do want to have them add into it. I know that decorating and embellishing a project is stressful for some of you, I want you to have fun with it though. This is my favorite part. I enjoy it so much that I could spend hours doing this. Just put it down, look at it, move things around, take things away, add to it, take a picture of it before you start gluing, and then once you've glued it, step back and take a good look and just keep adding. Just remember to layer on top of layer to get that look that you want without it being just a flat looking sticker stuck down or something like that. You want to have layers and different dimension on your project like that. So there's that third one I'm adding in. I'm just cut it to fit, and I'm going to snip the top off of this other one because some of the wire was showing instead of green. So I really like how it's coming together. I think I'll add another leaf here at the top. And it's all starting to dry. You can move it a little bit if it's if the glue is still a little damp if you need to. I tied a smaller button string bow, and I'm going to tuck that in right up there at the top on the left, up with those smaller buds up there on the top. Just checking everything, see how everything's setting up. I decided to take a few more fussy cut out flowers from the paper, and this is another technique of layering. This one I'm just sticking it in underneath, on top of the rose underneath the key. I felt that there was a gap there, so I needed a little bit of something. I have some leaves and some of the pink flowers. But then I also have some individual pink flowers that I'm going to partially glue down onto the pink flowers that are already on the key. Now this gives it another layer. I'm only going to add glue to the very bottom edge of each tiny little flower, and then when it dries I can take my fingers and pull them up just a little bit so that it looks like they have multi layers on these particular flowers. So that's what I'm doing here, is I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the very bottom edge of each flower and then glue that down on top of these flowers that I had already added onto the top of the key. I've grabbed my jar of ribbons to see what I had in there, and I already had this bow made out of this real light green seam binding ribbon. Now this is a narrow ribbon. It's not the normal width of the normal seam binding ribbon. The wider one would work just fine too, and you can order different colors from Country Craft Creations. So this was tied into a loop bow, and I am just tucking it in there underneath those flowers on the side, and I'm going to trim the ends off a little bit after it dries, but just tuck that in. I like to use a stylus to kind of poke that in to make it look fuller and loopier, and whoops, it got stuck to my stylus. While the green bow was drying, I went to my embellishment case where I have little drawers that I keep different things in, and I rummaged around and found a button that I really like, and I'm going to glue this down onto the bow. So I'm just putting a good amount of glue on the back of that button, and I'm just going to lift up these loops and then push that button down in there to the center. So I'm giving this bow a button center. Now I'm just brushing on some glitter sparkle to the fussy cut out flowers. You can see it there. I used a Nuvo glitter pen in the clear to just brush on some sparkle here and there. And the last embellishment that I'm adding is a metal butterfly that I found in my embellishment case. I bent the wings up, so I'm just putting the glue on the very center back, and I'm going to attach it down on this rose right here on the right side by the button twine ribbon, and that finishes my hat box, my Graphic 45 hat box using the Floral Shoppe collection that I've created for Country Craft Creations. I hope you enjoy following along and that you will try to add more decorating to your projects and have fun with it. Thank you so much for watching, and happy crafting. Bye-bye.
You